Hello and welcome back to Poison Break, Toxic Tales at Work. Today we're diving into one of the most destabilizing behaviors you can experience in a workplace, gaslighting. Gaslighting is not just denial, confusion, or misunderstanding. It is a systematic pattern of manipulation where someone makes you question your memories, judgment, or even your sanity. In this episode, we'll break down what research actually says about gaslighting, the psychological mechanisms behind it, the most common signs, why narcissistic or insecure managers rely on it, stories from Reddit that show how it looks in practice, and emotional consequences on victims, and also how to protect yourself. So let's start with the psychological context so you can recognize this red flag instantly. Psychologists describe gaslighting as a form of reality manipulation that slowly erodes a person's ability to trust themselves. There are some key research findings. For example, Dr. Robin Stern from Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence defines gaslighting as a relationship dynamic where the target ends up doubting their own perceptions. And there is a 2020 occupational psychology study found that narcissistic managers rely heavily on retrospective, rule-changing, denial, and blame-shifting. A 2023 Harvard Business Review article emphasizes that gaslighting thrives in environments lacking documentation and transparency, and workplace gaslighting is linked to emotional exhaustion, lowered cognitive confidence, and reduced performance, not because targets become incompetent, but because their mental energy is constantly spent on self-doubt. And understanding this foundation makes the next section even more powerful. The most common signs of workplace gaslighting are the following. These are the red flags that psychologists and research consistently point to. You frequently second guess yourself. Your versions of events is constantly questioned. Verbal instructions change afterwards. You hear "you misunderstood me" pretty often. You feel confused after normal conversations. You apologize excessively, even when unsure why. You overdocument everything to feel safe. And I mean everything, every little thing. I also did that. You feel like you need proof for normal interactions. You are told you are too sensitive or overreacting or dramatic. The goalposts move. Deadlines, expectations, and agreements shift without acknowledgement. Feedback and instructions are denied later, and your sense of reality feels unstable. And now the biggest sign, you start trusting their version of events more than your own. This is very big. Now that you have the signs in mind, let's look at why gaslighting happens at all. Narcissistic personalities typically use gaslighting for control. If you doubt yourself, they stay in charge of the narrative, obviously. Also, their ego can't tolerate being wrong. Denial shifts blame to you. Confusion makes people more compliant. And they rewrite history to maintain their perfect boss reputation, which is extremely important to them. Gaslighting is a psychological defense mechanism. It's not an accident. It's a defense mechanism. And it's there to control you, or in general, control others. It works because it leverages predictable psychological vulnerabilities. When someone confidently denies something you know happened, your brain struggles to reconcile the contradiction. We also assume that leaders or experts remember correctly, usually, and it starts small after all, so you don't really notice the shift. At least not right away. Gaslighters also speak with total certainty, even when lying, which creates an illusion. And they also isolate you. They subtly suggest others think you're emotional or wrong, and by that, they are reducing your support network. This explains why even highly intelligent, and I want to highlight that at this point, even highly intelligent, confident people can fall into gaslighting dynamics, and also very empathetic people. Now, I want to get to a Reddit story I read, which fits the topic basically. A Reddit user shared that her manager set a deadline for Friday at 5 p.m. and she submitted everything on time. On Monday, the manager said, "Why didn't you meet the Wednesday deadline? I told you clearly." And she was shocked, obviously. She remembered Friday. She had notes, but nothing in writing, unfortunately. When she tried to clarify, the manager replied, "You've been really forgetful lately. I'm worried." By the end of the post, she was genuinely questioning her memory, and every comment said the same thing: you're being gaslit. Another user shared how her boss constantly gave feedback like, "Update this section of the report." After she made the change, the boss would claim, "I never told you that. You completely misinterpreted me." Followed by, "You need to work on your listening skills." Oh, the audacity. The employee started writing follow-up emails, summarizing every conversation. The boss responded, "You're creating unnecessary tension. I don't know why you're acting so hostile." This is classic gaslighting. The moment you protect yourself, they frame you as the problem. Classic. I've also experienced that. The last story is a very short one. In this story, a manager approved a project plan in a team meeting. Everyone heard it. Later, midway through the work, the manager said, "I never approved this. Who told you to do that?" When the employee suggested confirming with the team, the manager replied, "No, I don't want to embarrass you." This is an attempt to block witnesses, a hallmark of workplace gaslighting. Studies show that long-term gaslighting can cause anxiety and hypervigilance, memory distrust, even outside of work, confusion and decision paralysis, sleep problems, burnout, symptoms similar to trauma response, a chronic need for reassurance, and loss of confidence in your professional abilities. Victims often say, "I feel like I'm going crazy," and that feeling is manufactured. It's not natural. And I've also experienced that. I was also thinking I was going crazy, but I think documenting, writing everything down, questioning it, talking with people about this, having the experience with, people like in private, and also growing up with a father who has those traits, I think it made it a bit easier to know that I'm not crazy, but I definitely felt like I was going crazy. And I remember even my coworkers, my colleagues at that time, we were saying out loud, like, we thought we were going crazy. We said, "Are we just paranoid, or is this really happening, or did this really happen, or could that be the cause for this and that?" Like, we really thought that we were paranoid. It turned out we were not, by the way. So there are some evidence-based strategies. You should document everything immediately. Follow up verbal instructions with a written summary. Ask for deadlines in writing, if possible. Keep personal notes, never on a work device. And I have a little tip, because I experienced that with personal notes. I did write everything down in my notebook, in handwriting, and I took that notebook with me every single day when I left work. I took it home with me, and I also, when I left for a meeting or something I had, like an appointment, I always took it with me. So I would never leave it on the desk or anywhere, they could reach it, which is crazy. You have to always think about that. You can loop in other people when appropriate. I would highly suggest that if you trust certain people. If you really think you can trust them, you should definitely loop them in. And avoid emotional conversations. Stick to facts. Set subtle boundaries, like, to avoid confusion, I'd like to put this in writing. Gaslighting cannot thrive where clarity exists. If any part of this episode feels familiar, please hear this very clearly. You are not overreacting. You are not imagining things. You are not overly sensitive. You're not confused. And you're not losing your grip on reality. Gaslighting is real, and it is recognized by psychologists. And it happens in workplaces far more often than people admit or know even. And so your perception is valid. Also, your memory is valid, and your experience as well. You are not going crazy, and you are not crazy. Thank you for listening to this deep dive episode on workplace gaslighting. Next time we'll explore another major red flag and also another story and break it down with research and real world cases. So take care of yourself, stay strong, stay sane, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye. Thank you for listening.